where do you think AI is going to be going, broadly speaking, as it relates to science and medicine? And I don't just mean, I think basically I'd love if you could kind of just riff on what you just said. I think it's easy to imagine AI systems that are just narrowly trained on diagnostic tasks or the scientific literature to do these sort of robotic or Spock-like, impersonal, dispassionate analyses and diagnostic tasks for humans. But what you're getting at is, we're probably going to see AIs that are not just trained to have scientific or medical expertise, but they are also trained in ways that give them what we might call a kind of human wisdom. And where do you see that going?
Well, I think they'll be trained in ways that have very deep knowledge. And I think, the prediction is within a few years, we'll have large language models that far exceed the capacity of expert scientists to be able to deal with the scientific facts of their information. And probably both Microsoft, OpenAI, and Google now are generating the next generation of transformers. And I think even those people have no idea of just where they're going and what they're going to be able to do, except that they're going to far exceed the previous generation whose capacities we know at least a little bit about. So I think the potential for the future is very great in amassing knowledge and being able to gain new insights. But it also requires a careful formulation to keep it, in a sense, under control. And under control is defined very differently by different kinds of people and so forth. And that's what I think the book Genesis tried to get at, how we could give large language models a sense of responsibility with regard to our ethics and sociology.
And there's sort of lots of different views on how the whole AI thing could play out, generally speaking. You might even say there's new ideologies or potentially even new religions forming in this realm. So one of the more optimistic views is basically that, well, we're about to hit what some people call the singularity. AI is going to sort of integrate. There's going to be human-machine interfaces. We're basically going to integrate with artificial general intelligence. And effectively, we will all, or at least some of us, become totally immortalized and escape the limitations of human biology that humanity has historically been limited by. The more pessimistic view is that, we're basically going to just create an AI that gets rid of humanity because it decides that's what's best to do. Where in that spectrum of optimism to pessimism do you sit, and what do you think sort of the future of human mortality is going to look like?
Well, I think the responsibility we have as humans is to be able to educate these intelligences so they're in sync with our values and our philosophy and our way of looking at things. I mean, I think there are still interesting issues. It's one thing to have infinite knowledge and to be able to connect it all. Does that give you the ability to creatively jump a gap that has never been jumped before and make new fundamental realizations about things? Humans clearly have done that repeatedly out in the context of their scientific development. And I think this is, whether these intelligences will be able to do that, I think is an open question. But the most important part is we have to educate them in a proper way that is consistent with a partnership that is acceptable to us. That, I think, is very important. And we don't know exactly what that implies at this point in time.
Yeah, and I guess that's a big open question. That's also the scary thing.
Yeah,
we're sort of
absolutely.
We sort of, I mean, if I sort of reflect what you say back to you and interpret it a little bit, on the one hand, two things are true simultaneously. We would probably all agree in some way, shape, or form that these things need to be trained in a very mindful fashion so that there's, what people call AI alignment, that the AI is going to stay aligned with humanity. Two problems there that immediately emerge. One, we don't actually know how to achieve that alignment. We're just, we're flying by the seat of our pants. We're just sort of hoping we achieve it, but no one, I don't think, really knows how to ensure that happens. And two is that when we say that we want the AI aligned with us, an implicit assumption there that I think is worth exploring is, who are we referring to when we say us? Because, we're all humans. Everyone shares one common humanity in the sense that we all belong to the same species. But, the entire history of humanity is a story of factions of humans competing against one another. And so, the question of how the AI is trained and who it is trained by is very important, because I don't think any one group knows exactly how this is going to play out. But also, if history is a guide at all, there's certainly no guarantee that whoever is at the helm of training these things is going to have all of humanity in mind rather than just a subset.
So I agree with everything you said there, basically. I think the most fundamental belief I have is once you let the genie out of the box, you're not going to put the genie back in the box. And so we have to deal with the genie that's out there. And all we can do is hope we deal with it in ways that are responsible according to our own ethics. Mm-hmm. And I admit there'll be very different groups that might have very different kinds of ethics. And that's a given that we have to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, in some sense that is just the naked truth. The genie is out of the bottle, and we're just going to have to deal with it, and different groups are going to have different thoughts, and we're going to just have to wait and see what happens.
I think it's like politics today. Yeah. I mean, many people have differing, divergent opinions on what's happened, but I think the really important thing for all of the sides in this political domain are, let's take the most optimistic opportunity. Let's take advantage of what circumstances have given us. Again, the genie's out of the box. We're not going to put it back and change anything, but let's do the best we can, each of us in our own ways, with what we're facing.